Okay, for those of you who didn't hear, the question was, what is the relationship between the Grand Boulevard Initiative and the bus rapid transit project that BTA is currently studying? From our perspective, we see a lot of the bus rapid transit elements that we're proposing with our transit improvement as following what the Grand Boulevard envisioned in a lot of the Grand Boulevard work that preceded some of our own. Grand Boulevard really was in existence for about 4 years before we started doing our work. Nevertheless, Grand Boulevard, when they developed schemes and developed ideas in terms of design, did consult very closely with the BTA, and BTA is actually a sponsor of the Grand Boulevard project. And so, but that is not to say that the BRT project is a prescription for the Grand Boulevard. It really just carries the themes of certain infrastructure elements, and those in particular would be transit and the transit infrastructure, as well as some of the walking infrastructure, particularly crossings and bulb-outs and intersections, as well as the bike lane, which are all really consistent with the principles that we've seen before in Grand Boulevard, as well as some of the planning work that's been done.
The gentleman in the far back.
Yes, I have a question also for Kat. Can you please explain what stoplight or signal light priority means, and what would it mean to me if I was living on Camino Road? These buses are up and down El Camino. Then that traffic priority went into effect in the bus. What is all that about?
I'm probably the first one to let you know this, but that's been happening to you since 2005. So we've had signal priority on El Camino since 2005 for transit. Transit gets priority now. And what it means simply, really, is that as a transit vehicle, the buses are approaching a signal that's green. It just keeps the green longer to let the bus through. It does not convert a red to a green. That would be called signal preemption, and that's what emergency vehicles have, for example. But it's really just a priority. It keeps it green longer to allow that extra 4 seconds or so to let a bus get through the intersection. And again, it's been on El Camino since 2005. And there's been actually quite a few studies of it done by the University of California.
So given that, and your intent to increase the frequency of buses, what is the effect on the cross traffic?
Well, there's actually, the frequency is a really minor frequency shift. Today we operate 12 minutes frequency, and in the future we're going to operate 10 minutes. So it's one extra bus per hour. Instead of 5, it'll be 6.
Could I have a question for another member of our panel?
Actually, this question is to anybody that would care to field it.
There you go.
And it's a two-part question. What about the property rights of the individuals that don't necessarily share Michael's vision? And what's going to be the economic cost to our communities if the other 50% is wrong that he spoke of?
So that sounds like a perfect question for Ronit.
Yes, and I'll be glad to answer it. There is no question of property rights. Property rights are in place. The idea of the Grand Boulevard is rethinking the possibilities. A lot can stay the same, some can change. If you're a property owner, it's your property. Some of the properties, especially, well, not especially, but some of the properties on El Camino in Mountain View have actually been sitting empty for years. If you're a property owner, it's your property, you're happy with it sitting empty, it'll stay empty. If you're a property owner and you'd like to try something else, there will be other possibilities that you could do. Maybe you haven't thought about it. So the Grand Boulevard is really to say there are other ways of doing this. And, there's none of us can sign in triplicate and say this is the truth. But this is another possibility, another option. We think it will work. We think it might work in certain places. Let's give it a try.
So you're not going to rezone an existing business out of use?
There is no question of, okay, so we're actually doing, we're updating our general plan. We had a lot of public input, quite a few of you were there. We had public input in 4 languages. You could give us your comments online. We came up with several areas of town that from the public input seemed to be areas where we could focus some changes. Most of the city is not changing. Some areas could change. Specifically, when we talk about El Camino, we are thinking that in certain key locations, we could go taller, up to 6 stories, if absolutely it's the most wonderful building on the face of the earth, and it gives us a lot of benefits. But what is there can stay, but in some locations, we could do something more interesting.
So some property owners are going to lose their
No,
property rights.
some property owners will have an opportunity to change the use if they want to. If they don't want to, they don't want to.
Thank you.
The gentleman in the far back.
Sorry, I have another question for Kevin, but, so you're gonna increase the, number of buses back to 5 to 6 based on what you said an hour?
Yeah.
1 every 10 minutes sounds like that's 6 an hour. 1 every 12 minutes is 5 an hour.
Right.
How many more people are gonna be riding these buses in relation to all the people that cannot now drive on this extra lane? And how much extra time is it gonna take for somebody, in your projections, to traverse from Mountain View to Palo Alto, what might now take 5 minutes, now that we've got 2 lanes, and all those other cars in there. You don't have to follow that, you probably don't live around here. So what's the deal on that? What's your projection?
Yeah, I believe the opening speaker said this wasn't about bus rapid transit, but I'm happy to stay here all night. But a lot of those questions, a lot of that data is online, and you can go look at it at valleyrapid.org. I will paraphrase, I'm not sure I can rattle off the exact numbers at the top of my head, but in terms of congestion, the forecasted congestion on El Camino gets worse without any transit improvement. And that is partially because of the general plan, and the plan ideas were not just Mountain View, but all the cities along El Camino. And it's partially because of just general population growth that is expected. We're expected to go with 30% higher population, 40% higher jobs, particularly in the El Camino corridor. So the congestion will be there in the future, regardless of whether there's transit. And so tomorrow we could sort of take away all transit, and there will definitely be congestion on El Camino. What transit does is it offers an opportunity and offers a choice, something other than driving. And what it does is actually increases the speed of transit, so it's competitive. There are other options for driving, and there are not a lot of other options for transit in terms of making the same choice. So that's a general understanding, general philosophy and approach of the project. And again, in terms of the ridership, we're looking at a projected going up to about 38,000 riders a day on it. In terms of the diversion of cars, it's really about 900 cars in a peak hour there. So it's a big number. And again, I encourage you to go look it online where we have all this data.
Thank you, Kevin. The woman in the white sweater.
This is somewhat related to that, either for Kevin or Ronit, Bryant, but I'd like to know how you can justify the cost of those buses, those new buses, because you're not taking out the old buses, you're just adding new buses. To me, a bike lane has real value, because a lot of the Silicon Valley guys that ride bikes, and they do ride bikes. I think the bike lane is a good thing. I think these buses are nuts. When I see the buses go by in the El Camino, there's 4 people in a giant double bus. I don't know how you can justify running what you're running now.
Okay, taking those as questions, I'll start from the beginning.
How do you justify
The first one is in terms of the bike. I mean, I want to say right now that I love bikes too, and I think everybody loves bikes. I want to see a show of hands of those of you who don't love bikes. I'm kidding. But in terms of our projection for bikes, on the corridor, we're showing that the bike usage, and like you say, it's a good investment. Bike usage goes up 4 times in terms of with a bike lane. It goes from 100 a day to about 400 a day. And everybody does love that. In terms of the transit, we are 20,000 a day today, and we're showing it goes up to about 38,000. So it doubles. Now, I do have to kind of point out that that's 400 and that's 38,000. And so if you want to make a change in your vehicle miles traveled, bikes are great. We can do a lot with bikes. Transit really has the ability to carry a lot of people. In terms of the buses and replacing the buses, what it's doing actually is we're not adding a whole nother layer of service on there. We're replacing our existing 522 service with the BRT service. So it's really a net increase of only 17 buses. And in terms of the cost efficiency of that, it's actually a very effective investment if you compare it to, for example, other ways to improve transit, such as light rail or heavy rail. It's much more cost effective.
Looks like we have time for just 1 or 2 more questions. Yes?
Hi, I'm a Google engineer, bicycle enthusiast. I'm a Mountain View resident who considers single driver car, getting around in cars, to be verging on criminal stupidity. But and I currently avoid El Camino just because it's just so bike hostile and bleak and paved. And I would love it to be a destination. So I would love to have a reason to come a little past, to other parts of Mountain View other than just Castro and then get back to Google. My question is to the Grand Avenue is how soon can we see a real improvement on El Camino? Is it 5, 10, 20? Are we talking 50? How soon can it happen?
So I'm going to ask that question, or turn that question over to Ronit, because as a city council member, somebody who's elected by the people in this room, if those people are from Mountain View, those are where the decisions are primarily made in concert with other agencies and levels of government.
Thank you, Bruce. This one is a lot less easy to answer. I don't know how long it will take. So we are getting development proposals for places along El Camino. We've gotten several over the few last years, and they didn't happen because the funding disappeared. We are getting some now, and I think that the funding is more in place. For places that will begin to make El Camino a pleasanter place to be on, with a larger pavement, with a cafe that adds some depth to the pavement. On the intersection of San Antonio and El Camino, and Mayor Castellak spoke about that earlier, there's a whole huge redevelopment. And some of the first proposals that we got were really El Camino the way it always used to be. Parking next to the street, drive through this, drive through there. And we said that's really, really not what we want. We want something facing the street, something that will activate the sidewalk. And by the way, we also want white sidewalks. And, I won't say that I'm totally happy with what we're getting, because I came closer to what I wanted than what was proposed before, but this will be a beginning to make it a place where you want to be. Now, in Mountain View specifically, what we heard a lot when we were doing the visioning for the general plan was, you can look at El Camino as just a way to get through town. And you can look at it as a connect, not only for traffic, but a connector between neighborhoods. And I live downtown and I like walking to Pete's, but crossing El Camino right now is not pleasant. But as we begin thinking that it's a place for people also, and we need to make the sidewalks pleasant, we need to take care of our median islands, we can begin directing development to say, this is the look that we want. Basically, Michael talked about the vision. What is the result you want? And then let's figure out how we can make it happen. How long it will take, I don't know. The sooner the better, but it will take a long time.
The gentleman with the glasses.
Yes, hi. I had a question as far as the development side, for the developer on the panel. I wanted to ask about what's your take on it in terms of Grand Boulevard Initiative? What do you see in terms of positives about that, and what are the challenges, possibilities of that?
Thank you. So my history, I've been on the Grand Boulevard task force since 2006, so I've participated in a number of meetings through those years. I've built a community on El Camino in South San Francisco, which was at the BART station. Recently, have a project approved in Redwood City on El Camino, and then we have two that we're proposing in Mountain View. We see it as a tremendous opportunity, and quite frankly, just seeing some of the slides from Michael's presentation, it inspires how things can get more attractive with a lot of effort. Without a doubt, we're always going to the wider sidewalks, street trees, architectural interest to the street. Those are just ingrained now in how we look at working on El Camino and creating opportunities for things you've never thought about, trail connections, trying to upgrade maybe surrounding neighborhood, the retail uses around us, they might have suffered, from, during the downturn. So how can we improve each little stretch of El Camino? We see as a tremendous opportunity. Our demographic wants to live in a vibrant space. I will tell you that is all true. They want to be able to come home and leave and come home and just be around people and things to do. And so we see El Camino as a tremendous place for that. Challenges-wise, I will say it's very complicated to work on El Camino because, in almost every city I've worked on, we have another city across the street. We have Caltrans in front of us, and 3 out of 4 projects were next to the SFPUC. So we're working with multiple agencies, so generally it's very challenging. Somebody asked about property rights. Some owners would like to sell their land, and some owners would not. The parcel sizes in El Camino are very irregular. And so a challenge sometimes is assembling 2 people that might be interested to sell at the same time. Some people have owned their property for over 100 years on El Camino. So those are just some of the, we see it as a tremendous opportunity, the thoughtfulness that the BTA and Samtrans have done to, if you look at their toolbox for design guidelines, you'll get inspired and excited by what it could become, I think. And we've embraced that as a company, and we're really excited.
So thank you. It's now my sad duty to tell you that the meeting is coming to a close. I'd like to make just 1 or 2 brief remarks on my own, other than to say thank you so much for coming, because I, along with many of the other people on the panel, have been to so many public meetings where attendance was low and attention was low and passion and engagement were low. That even though there may have been a few more sparks than light at some points in the day, I really think that this all puts us all on our best game to learn how to frame our arguments, whatever our arguments may be. And I also wanted to thank Michael. I never had the pleasure of meeting Bruce Leedstrom. I know he's still out and active in the community, but I do remember coming to eat dinner on Castro Street in 1972 and walking by the tall building, which was then known as Dog City, because I don't know whether wild dogs or trained dogs or what, but the only occupants of that big building would bark at you as you walked down El Camino. And the best restaurant I knew was the New Mongolian Barbecue, which I think is the only restaurant that's still running 40 years down the road. And in another 40 years, I'm going to go there again. This downtown has transformed itself in a way that I think is truly remarkable. And now, instead of barking dogs, the thing that I notice when I go downtown is there's almost no place to park unless you really know your way around Mountain View. You can still find a few. And I also, for the last 2 years, have worked in an area that's just a mile from where I live. And that has transformed my life. I am so much more relaxed that I don't have to get on the freeway to go to my job. When something goes wrong with the cable service, I just tell the Comcast guy, call me 5 minutes before you get to the house, and I'll meet you at the house. These may seem like little things, but to me, they're huge quality of life issues compared to the way I used to feel when I commuted to Foster City, and sometimes it would take 25 minutes, and sometimes it would take an hour. It allowed me to be more engaged with the community, with my neighbors, to just be happier. So I hope everyone can experience that level of happiness. There already is, and thank you so much for coming.